Welcome to Podcast Movement 2024.
Good morning. Good morning, Podcast Movement. I'm Amanda.
I'm Eric. Hello.
And we are very excited to be here to talk to you today. We're qualified to be up on this keynote stage, not because we run a podcast company, that we do, we'll tell you about it in a second, but because we have been publishing, hosting weekly podcasts since 2015 and 2016, respectively.
That's right.
Episode 400 just came out of my oldest show, episode 350 of Eric's. Mm-hmm. That's what makes us qualified to be up here and makes you qualified to know exactly what to do in the podcast industry.
Yeah. Everything that we've done from podcasts have stemmed out of these shows. If you don't know who we are, Multitude is a podcast collective, studio, and ad sales provider. So we are a collective where we all work together, we support each other, and we go and we do live shows together, and we come to Podcast Movement together. And Amanda sells ads for all of the shows in the collective and for other clients that have come in. When we're a studio, that means that we make shows for other people. So we've made shows for Sony Music, we've made shows for Netflix, we currently make shows for Defector, and for Aftermath, subscription-based websites, the future of media. We've also been able to consult on incredible audio journalism like Gooned. Also in the top right, you can see that we were just on a 7-city tour of the United States, live shows, podcast live shows, baby. You gotta see them in person. It is absolutely incredible. DC was actually one of our best shows, so shout out to DC. Y'all are incredible. And we spend a lot of time teaching. We teach companies, we teach individuals who come to Multitude, and we are working at Stony Brook University this year as part of their podcast incubator. So we're professors.
We are, that's true.
My mom kind of understands what my job is now.
My mom thinks I now have health insurance. It's great. I've had it for 8 years. It's okay, Mom.
Incredible. We've been listening to podcasts, we've been learning podcasts for so long, and I think it's something that we don't remember in podcasting, that like as a creative medium, as an artistic medium, you need to listen and you need to make shows. You can find so many Pinterest boards of artistic quotes from writers, from musicians, from movie makers about this, just like this one from Stephen King, and you can even find some from that guy Ira Glass. The guy with the glasses and the beard who was on the stage earlier.
Oh, he was here yesterday.
Yeah, that guy.
That's
It's
right.
like, it's all about figuring out what is good, and making your way there and consuming the things that you're all doing. You all listen to podcasts. You all know the things that make good podcasts. And I think it's really funny over the last few years, while we've all been making podcasts and listening to podcasts, podcasting died. Did you know? Did you hear? Podcasting's been dead for 3 years now? It's a zombie.
All of us here are zombies. We have survived. Congratulations. We are back here today. But apparently, podcasting just totally was dead while I was discovering, listening to, subscribing to the Patreons of, going to live shows of some of my favorite shows.
I really like this particular headline, which they're going to put up once again in a second, is that, so this one is by Nick Qua, September 22nd, 2022. This was the earliest one I saw. But there's the subheader right there. It's been ages since the last blockbuster narrative show. Why are we determining the health of podcasting based on the last time there was a serial? That makes literally no sense. Obviously, movies are determined by the last time there was Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Obviously, books are determined by the last time there was the Da Vinci Code.
Exactly.
Which are the same.
Those are exactly the same. Those two. Yeah, Colleen Hoover and the MCU, exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
But I think we've lost our way a little bit as an industry. We have neglected to focus and refocus on what is actually important out there and what you out there actually already know.
Yeah. You know more about good podcasts than the executives funding and canceling shows.
You do.
You do.
You know it, we know it. That's why we are up here to tell you and remind you. Hopefully you walk away reminding yourself that you actually know more than the people who are making boneheaded decisions and then get reported on, and you share it to your group chat and think, what the hell? What the hell is that they're wrong, not that you're wrong.
Exactly. All right, we have 3 examples of this. We are going to use 3 moments in podcasting that were big, that executives learned the wrong lessons from. We're going to talk about the bursting on the scene of Serial. We're going to talk about Gimlet as a company, and we're going to talk about the podcasting ad bubble. All right, we're going to use these to show how executives got the wrong lessons, and you all probably were like, that doesn't really make sense for my life, but okay. First thing, Serial. I'm going to say something controversial. Serial, really good podcast.
Serial absolutely rips. If you've not re-listened to it in a while, give it a go. It's incredibly good. The plink, plink, plinks.
I'm going to put this to get stuck in your head. plink, 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 plink. And you're gonna be thinking that the rest of the day.
My friends and I still do voice memos where we go, mail, scrimp.
Mail Cream?
To this day, it's been 10 years, people. That shit lives rent-free.
This is the 10-year anniversary of Serial. And what did podcast executives learn from this? Oh, obviously, let's spend a bunch of money. And what we're gonna spend money on isn't producers or raising the salaries of the people who work there or maybe giving them new subscriptions to Pro Tools. No, we're gonna give Joe Rogan $200 million. SiriusXM yesterday gave Alex Cooper $130 million. They gave Meghan Markle a ton of money to make 3 podcast episodes where she recorded them at a different time than her guests. I don't know if you know all the New Yorkers out there, you might know this corner on the Lower East Side. These are very expensive billboards that Justin Bieber was wearing Calvin Klein jeans on at some point, and Luminary was like, let's advertise Karamo. That's the move. That's what's gonna make more podcast listeners.
My favorite example of this slide is when Staples is like, you know what we should do is put a podcast booth in every Staples. That'll really save Staples. And I don't know about you, but I don't go to Home Depot with my dad and then go to the Staples next door to record a podcast. Maybe they were thinking about something I wasn't, but I don't think they were.
And I'm sure there were public radio people in the room who are patting themselves on the back. Man, y'all are doing this too. From WBEZ, they had to lay people off because they had a new studio renovation. They raised salaries for executives. They had a $9 million profit margin last year, and they're like, can't figure out how the money works, gotta lay you guys off. This is the people who put out Serial. WBEZ in Chicago. This CEO is also a lame duck. He's no longer CEO. He doesn't have any power because he did a bad job. And he still managed to lay everyone off after spending all this money. It doesn't make any sense to me. No. So after you spend all that money on like billboards and laying people off, you're going to make a Serial like. Let's make a show that has prestige vibes, that's going to like, I don't know, be invasive to people. We're gonna get a microphone and really explore their life. We're gonna let the budget just balloon, and we're gonna make like a few episodes of it, and it's gonna sound really, really great, and we're gonna spend all this time on it. Here, let me sum it up for you. Here's the formula. 1, you pour money into flashy things. 2, you get prestige vibes. 3, you publish like 6 episodes maximum.
Eric,
no more than 6.
Don't let the audience fall in love with your consistently released podcast that they start to look forward to on a given day.
Absolutely not. Cut it off at 6 episodes, something happens, and then profit, I guess.
And when this formula doesn't pan out, right? When the boneheaded investment, when the flashy new studio, when the billboard that simply says Karamo and then in small words Luminary, doesn't in fact drive a lot of people to the thing that you are talking about and making. It's not the executives who suffer, it's the producers and the podcasters whose jobs get cut and whose shows and budgets and roles and lives get cut because of their terrible decision. This math doesn't math, and executives are not paying for it.
Exactly. But this is what podcasters learned from Serial. I don't know if you remember when Serial first debuted back in October 2014. It was premiered on the This American Life feed. This American Life consistently came out every single week. They had an incredibly devoted audience that tuned in every week for new episodes of This American Life. They invested in their journalists and their audio producers. The people who were working at WBZ, the people working on Serial, were working at WBZ. They had salaried positions in order to work on Serial and make something totally new. And when they were ready, when they were so excited about it, they launched it on the feed. This was an episode from October 6, 2014. And this was the first episode of Serial that was premiered on the This American Life feed as like a new episode of This American Life. I actually have a transcript here of what Ira Glass said in the beginning of that episode. So he does the whole thing. He's like, I'm Ira Glass. This is WBEZ in Chicago. This is This American Life.
It's uncanny, Eric. It's like he's here again.
And this is what he said. For 4 months around here at a radio show, we've been preparing for this day because this is the day we launch our first real spin-off. I'm gonna pause for a second. Did you know they framed Serial as a spin-off? We kind of forget that of how big it is now. But it was framed as a spin-off. If you like what we're doing here, you're absolutely gonna love this new show that we're doing. As of today, we're not making one weekly show, reminding people they make a weekly show, and that they're gonna have a serialized show, 2 shows, and our second show is called Serial. Obviously, Serial, we started out by saying this is an incredible show, but This American Life, understanding their audience and launching it to the people who want to love it was exactly the rocket fuel that kicked it off and made it the phenomenon that we know it today.
Serial was an incredible show. It would have been successful no matter what, but this framing and this launch set it up for the meteoric rise and success, and I'll say unique phenomenon that it was. And the fact that it has been replicated twice doesn't mean anything about the health of our industry.
Yeah.
And in fact, another of the huge seismic events in podcasting over the last 10 years also came out of This American Life. It's Startup. I wore my Startup blue pants today for you because, I don't know if you remember, this was the original art that Startup launched with. It doesn't surprise me that they changed it because it's literally a white man's hand asking for money on like a tech blue background. You can tell it's not a woman because there's no nails. Okay, it's
the woman's hand would have had red nails.
Yeah,
on
that's how those are the two genders: is red nails and no nails. This is also the original show description from the first episode of Startup. So if you look at this description, it does two important things. One, it identifies Alex Bloomberg, a person you should care about because he comes out of This American Life and Planet Money, right? They're establishing his bona fides, his ethos. And secondly, they're positioning him as someone who bumbles into business, right? A guy who knows nothing about business starting a business. It's like a comedy of errors. And that's how they framed it.
Exactly. Why, when we saw Gimlet, why did we choose tech startups to be the model for podcast companies? It literally doesn't make any sense for a media company.
That first episode of Startup is about Alex Bloomberg running into a billionaire in an elevator, getting starstruck, and then failing to pitch his media company. It is positioning media and podcasting as like the cute little allergic to money thing that stumbled into the world of business and then, somehow failed up its way to success. And that is not the model that we need to be replicating for 2024 and for this new decade of podcasting.
Right. You can actually just look up how much money that Gimlet raised. It's just on their Wikipedia page. You put Gimlet into Wikipedia, and then you get this.
Always happens.
It always happens. So you always get the cocktail first every time. So then you do it again, and then you put in Gimlet Media. And the majority of the actual page is just about the company and how much as a tech company. It's like there's a little table that has all of the shows they've ever made, but it's just about the amount of money they've raised. $30 million for a podcasting company. That's a lot of Patreon. That's so much Patreon. That's a lot of Casper mattress ads.
A lot of staff payrolls. And the thing that we know now that we didn't know before, right? In 2014, I heard wow, a podcast company raised a lot of money. That's incredible. The thing we know now is that money doesn't come free, right? Money from venture capital, money from startups doesn't come free. And in fact, last year, they had a pretty tough year as well. The VC bubble is arguably bursting a little bit. This money comes with expectations. Investors hand out money like poker chips, and then they want one of those few bets to pay off. They want to give $30 million or $100 million to somebody and then hope it comes back tenfold. And that's a very bad model for podcasting because, in fact, the goal of a tech startup is to exit. The goal of a media company is to live and thrive. So I don't know why we are looking to tech startups whose goal is to get bought by somebody else and pay back their investors when that's antithetical to art, media, and community building, the things I'm here for.
And Gimlet didn't pay their money back. Spotify did. They gave them 10 times of $30 million, $300 million to make up for the fact that they raised all that money. It makes sense when you think of it because they did exactly the thing they wanted to do, and for some reason we all decided that was the way we were going to run our businesses. Hey, Amanda, you're the CEO of a business.
Whoa! Yes, no, I am. Sorry, that was corny.
Could you tell me a little bit about podcast ads? I don't really understand how they work.
Yes, well, you might have heard, Eric, that podcast advertising is dead, that the podcast ad revenue sort of like gravy train is over, and nobody is making money in podcasting anymore. And in fact, what that means is because ad revenue is apparently disappearing and going down and no one knows where it went last year, we have to lay off huge swaths of workforces. The problem is that the numbers don't bear that out because 2023 was a record-breaking year in podcast ad sales, breaking the record of 2022, which then broke
Everyone
the record
take photos of this.
Of 2021.
It's on the internet, but take photos of it now.
Tom's not the only one with charts, baby. We bring
Tom,
charts
we
too.
got numbers too.
Got your numbers, baby.
Got your numbers, Tom.
Podcast ad revenue has only been going up. And it's not just the gross revenue amounts, right? We're here to question numbers and assumptions. It's also the quality of what that does. A study published just 2 weeks ago is all about the efficacy of audio ads. We all know that when somebody we know and trust as a podcast host says to us, hey, I think you should check out these frozen sourdough croissants, I'm like, I will buy that. Thank you so much. And it works for a reason. We establish trust. We all know this. Our voice and our perspective, renting out what we have built with our audience to an advertiser has value. And that's always going to be true. The thing is that when you insist on that value to insecure executives who are only worried about that quarter's profits, they kind of hate it. This is a very blurry, redacted email that I'm a little nervous to share because it's a story that is the story of my worst day at work in the last 10 years. An insecure podcast advertising executive stood up on behalf of one of their friends who didn't read a contract and was mad that I had a limited, non-compete with a show that they were taking from my network. Fine, happens all the time. Instead, the executive came to me and was like, you have the gall to claim that you bring value to our relationship, that you do anything worthwhile, and then to codify that protecting of your own value in a contract? How dare you? She flipped out. It was the wildest email I've ever received at work, and I worked in investment banking, people. I am not like a daisy here. I have seen bad emails at work.
She was confident to put this in an email that we now have and can screenshot for a presentation.
So if you buy me a drink later, I'm happy to show you the email. It's just on my phone. It's just there forever. I bring this up because it was a very low and frustrating moment for me when I stood up on behalf of my value, my business, my clients, and somebody with a medium-sized checkbook dangled it in front of my face and said, no, you should be so lucky. You should be begging for the scraps that I'm willing to offer you, little podcaster, and be happy for what I decide to give. And I refused that. I stood up to them. I got through that terrible week at work. I'm showing you the email now. And I'm here to tell the tale. And that, I think, is the more important lesson to take forward, that you can stand up to people who say that what you do doesn't have value and be right okay on the other end.
Okay, so those are our 3 examples.
Thank you. Buy me a drink. Tequila soda. Let's do it.
I'll also buy me a drink. I'll be standing next to her. Hell yeah. So we've had our 3 examples, right, of ways that podcast executives didn't know what they were doing. But let's talk about the things that you and I know. What do you like about the podcast you listen to? What is the show you want to make? At the core, when you listen to podcasts, when you make podcasts, you figure out more and more what you like and what you want to see. This is the core of making a good podcast. You probably know this in your gut, but we're going to lay out the 3 things that we do at Multitude in order to figure out what makes a good podcast. First, you make a unique show. What is the only show that you can make that's going to stand out from the podcasting landscape? What is the perspective you bring? What's the subject matter you know? What's the structure of the show? Maybe you live in a different place that people don't, that isn't service. Maybe you speak in a different language and you're able to serve that. I keep hearing about the Spanish markets of podcasting blowing up. I want to listen to more Spanish podcasts. Make the unique show that you can do. This has nothing to do with budget. This has everything to do with what you can bring to the table, and that will bring your audience in.
Absolutely. It's also about being specific to the medium. We are audio podcasts, and you should make as good of audio as you possibly can. Whether that's the microphone that you have and can afford and learning great mic technique and using the tools you know and understand to edit your show, whatever that means, be specific to this medium. That also includes a lot of critical listening. Like you were saying earlier, I wake up, I listen to my shows, and I'm noticing what I'm liking and not liking. I'm noticing when my attention is wandering, and I'm noticing what makes a great show to me in audio that I get to walk around in the world with.
Absolutely. And finally, release consistently. Putting 6 episodes and then a feed drop in an RSS feed is never going to put out an audience. Listen, today it's Wednesday morning, right? You all woke up and said, hell yeah, my Wednesday podcast came out. I'm excited it's Wednesday so I can listen to the Wednesday podcast.
Yes.
Podcasting is a serialized medium. It's like late night TV. People are tuning in at the time to listen to Carson. They want you to put the show out when it comes out. And that's only going to happen if you keep putting out shows consistently. If you want to put out seasonal shows, that's also fine, but communicate with your audience about when those seasons are going to come out and tell them to be excited about it and maybe seed some stuff a little bit in between. Don't complain and make fun of your audience that they want you to put out episodes. Also come and buy me a drink later. I'll tell you all the shows that do that. Putting the shows out is the whole point of our medium, so keep putting your show out on a consistent basis. No one's saying you gotta kill yourself. No one's saying you gotta put out a podcast episode when you're having a terrible family tragedy. Talk to your audience, but keep putting out and build your consistent audience. These 3 qualities are already putting you far and away ahead of people, executives in the space that are spending tons of money, and then they try to convince you that their investment was right. That's what all of the news stories are. They want to tell people that they were right and you were wrong and you should be following what they're doing, but it doesn't make any sense for people actually listening and making podcasts.
That's it. That's as simple as it has to be. And when you do those things, your audience will come, your community will coalesce, and you will grow.
Let's think about what success looks like for podcasting, right? Maybe we're not getting $200 million just for asking questions like Joe Rogan does. But maybe you could perform at Carnegie Hall like Dungeons & Dragons podcast, Not Another D&D podcast just did. Maybe you're gonna make a line of pastas, which is the craziest thing I've said on stage all day, like Dan Pashman did with the Sporkful. Maybe you're gonna be like Jason Kirk, who is on the Shutdown Fullcast, a college football podcast, and he released a self-published novel, and he released it to his audience on that show, and using all of the pre-order royalties, he gave $50,000 to the Trevor Project. Absolutely incredible. And maybe someone will get a tattoo of your shows on their leg forever, because that's what happened to us.
Those are our podcast logos on someone's leg forever. Podcasting never died because Gad was getting tattooed a year and a half ago. It's truly incredible. It's astonishing. It's humbling. And these are the things we've known all along, we've been doing for 10 years, and you out there have been doing every single episode.
Exactly. In fact, when we're talking about money, y'all should be getting Patreons and doing membership instead of just relying on ad sales. If ad sales are just going to be for enterprise solutions, you should talk to your audience and let them support you by giving you $5 a month for doing a really good job and making the animals podcast that you love so much about them. Patreon just reported that in 2023, podcasters made $300 million in revenue. That is the second largest medium on Patreon. That's insane. That is an entire GDP of a country. That is certainly enough money to float an entire industry that doesn't actually seem to be all that dead.
This is the backbone of a resilient industry, is people saying, I see your work, I see that it's important, I'll support it with my dollar when I can, and I'll support it with texting a friend, telling my date, getting a tattoo when I can.
Exactly. While we're all making shows, podcasting never went out of style. We're always making the shows we want to make while everything's swirling around us. We just keep doing what it is we're doing, and we're being better at our creative medium. So as the next thing happens, as the AI bubble continues to grow and they're going to use your voice to record your podcast for you, and everyone has to pivot to YouTube just because Spotify told you to, because they hate the RSS feed, so they're trying to make you have more engagement on their app by using video. That's exactly what they're doing. You don't have to use video unless you want to. Come talk to me at the bar. I'll talk to you more about that. Or if Karamo is pushing you out and every single celebrity has a podcast and you feel like there's no space for you, that's absolutely not true. You just got to do the things that you know from listening to podcasts, from making podcasts. Do the thing that you know is best for you.
You've always known what to do. Okay, folks, it can be just this simple. Supporting the shows you love, making the show you want to hear.
Find your audience and thrive. That's it. You always knew what made a good podcast. We are Multitude. I'm Eric Silver, head of development. That's Amanda McLoughlin, our CEO. If you need anything, just check out multitude.productions. Listen to our podcast. We're going to be walking around, and someone better buy us a drink. Goddamn, I want to show you all that email.
Come look for these pants. I'm really tall.
Come on. It's here.
Thanks,
See
everybody.
y'all later.
When Podcast Movement 24 wraps up, that only means the fun has just begun. Next year, Podcast Movement will be bringing you 2 big events, and we hope to see you at them both. This March 31st through April 3rd, Podcast Movement Evolutions debuts in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. The podcast industry is changing, and Evolutions will be the place to come together, learn about, and discuss it all. Then, next summer, Podcast Movement heads back to where it all began over 10 years ago, when we take the world's most important gathering of podcasters back to Dallas, Texas. Tickets for both events are on sale now at podcastmovement.com/2025. Register today so you don't miss the must-attend podcasting events of 2025. We'll see you there.